with Russell Westbrook retiring.
Yep.
We're going to talk about the top 10 point guards of all time. And does Russell Westbrook fit the bill to be on that list?
Interesting.
So we both have our own lists and
Yep.
we'll compare. And then we're going to talk about the top 3 storylines heading into the 2026-2027 season. So
sounds good.
Where do you want to start? Do we go top 10 or do we do storylines first?
Let's do our top 10.
Let's do our top
Let's
10.
honor Russell Westbrook and get into this top 10. I think I want to say first, before we get into our list, I was really surprised that he retired at the year before this season starts. On the one hand, good on him for getting ahead of it. You hate to see when an athlete in any sport hangs on maybe 1 or 2 years too long, and the way in which you remember them completely changes because of the inevitable decline. It seems like through his retirement video, he's got some exciting stuff coming up, and it just seems like a really interesting, creative person off the court.
Yeah.
With a huge amount of intensity that we saw on the court that, like, got to wish him well. He was fun to watch for many years in the NBA.
Yeah, he didn't do his retirement tour, which a lot of superstars do. So I don't know about you, but it took me down memory lane of just thinking back to really like my prime of watching basketball, like the 2011 to 2019.
Yeah.
It's my prime because that's the Warriors' prime. So just coincide. Anyhow,
back to those Oklahoma City Thunder years where they're making noise in the Western Conference, getting into the finals, some really intense seasons. And I think when in their early years, when it was James Harden, you had Serge Ibaka, you had Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. That was an interesting, fun team. And now, of course, Perk is now in the media.
Roberson. I mean, that is a huge what if team.
Nick Collison as well was on that, just holding it down. And he's talked about as being highly, highly intelligent in that team. That is a fun thing. And I think we also, at this point, probably should apologize a little bit to Russell Westbrook, because some of those years in Los Angeles or that season in LA, that wasn't great. There were a couple of things where I think there was a wider story around him that he should have retired then, just in frustration for the way he was playing. And it seemed like he was sort of like unable to sort of transition into a different role. But the man goes 100 miles an hour all the time. And I think that's one of the reasons that makes him really special. And so
100%.
Yeah.
He had those. So let's just recap his career. He went from OKC. From OKC, did he go to Washington and then Washington, Houston, and then Houston, Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets? Or was Nuggets before Lakers and Clippers? And then he ended his career in Sacramento.
Yeah, that's right. No, he did journey around. I thought for some reason that he went OKC, Houston first, and then Houston, Washington.
Yep.
And went that route.
Yep, that would make sense.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of teams. A surprising end to career. And, somebody who had that stature in the league, you thought that perhaps his talent would keep him on a team for longer amounts of time. Going into that Washington rebuild, he had some personally phenomenal seasons in that city. Not necessarily the same sort of like team impact that maybe we thought. And then it looked like it was kind of hard to take all of the talents and the style of guard that he brings and put it on a team with ball dominant guys like James Harden again in Houston, and then LeBron obviously, and the rest of the team over in Los Angeles. Mixed success in that tail end of his career, but obviously that time in Oklahoma City with Durant, that stands out as being super successful. And then those personal season in Washington where he averages a triple-double and just like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
MVP, finals appearances on his career list. He played in the Olympics. He definitely an all-star, and just some of the most energetic dunks from a guard. I was watching some of his highlights and I thought this is sort of like maybe a more intense, more like unleashed version of Derrick Rose in some respects. And that's always just good for the game.
Yeah.
Like just fun to watch, and competes on both sides of the floor. So
probably the most polarizing point guard of that era.
I would say so. Yeah.
You either loved him or you hate him.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So we're going to go 1 to 10. I want you to give, and this is in order. So we're doing an order rank.
Yeah.
You start with your top 3.
Okay.
And I'll let you know if I agree or if I've got a different order.
All right. All right. Well, I'm just gonna go completely Canadian biased here. I'm gonna go Steve Nash as the greatest point guard of all time.
Okay.
Hey, I'm gonna salute the countryman. I think he was the instigator with D'Antoni of the 7 seconds or less. That wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Steve Nash. The way that guy could sort of like bring that hockey strategy into the
Yep.
into the
You're zagging here. No, I've never heard Steve Nash at the top of the
yeah,
list.
that's right. I know. I don't want to be predictable in this
Okay.
conversation.
All
So
right.
Steve Nash, he was a great 3-point shooter, an energetic player. People love playing with him. He goes on to be a consultant in the NBA, and it's just all around a really good human being, right? Like
Okay.
so, across from all of the sorts of things. So I've got Steve Nash at the top, represent Canada, and then I've got Magic and Steph Curry in my 2 and 3.
So Magic 2, Steph 3.
Yeah, that's right. And Magic, Showtime Lakers, he had one incredible career. Poetry on the court. I admittedly didn't watch a lot of Lakers games in that era, but the reputation supersedes him. And I think number 3, an oversized big being able to pass the way he did is pretty amazing. And then, of course, Steph is another person who changed the game. He's your non-traditional point guard. He's not necessarily running the offense and dictating things as he's bringing up the ball up the court. But because of what he does, his off-ball movement, his shooting, he commands the game in a really amazing way. And I think if you remember the Olympics, the French are never not going to remember Steph Curry. And I think that's the kind of game-changing point guard that's up at the top. And so I've got non-traditional starters in my top 3.
Yeah.
I put Magic there just to hold it down.
Okay.
But
look, I don't think you have to argue having Steph Curry at 3. You have to argue why he's so like low on your list.
All right. Well,
so I've got Steph Curry at 1.
Okay.
I think no one's changed the game of basketball more than Steph Curry has. He's got 4 championships, more 3-pointers than anybody ever, and the off the ball style of game that he has. If other players could adopt that into their game, they would be like if Jaylen Brown could have some off the ball offense, he probably doesn't get traded away from Boston. So I think his conditioning also, if you go through the years of his body transformation, like you would pick on him in defense all the time. In his first number of years, you probably still pick on him, but he's got enough muscle mass now to hold his own, and at least the effort's always there. So I've got Steph Curry at 1. I've got Magic Johnson at 2 for all the same reasons that you say. You could either play him at 1 or the game in the finals that Kareem was out, he also played 5. Like he is a versatile player who was exciting, and main goal was to get the rest of the team involved. My number 3, I've got Steve Nash at 5. So my number 3 is John Stockton.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. He's on my list as well, but
yeah, is he the assist leader? He had assists, he had steals, and just unfortunate that he played in the era of one of the 2 best players of all time.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's my top 3. I've got Curry, Magic, and Stockton.
Yeah. And I think that's where I've got John Stockton at number 4, along with I've got Jason Kidd at 5, and then Oscar Robertson at 6.
Okay.
So that would be my list. And these are now moving into more traditional, perhaps less controversial picks in my next 3.
Yeah.
Obviously, John Stockton for the same reasons that you're talking about, that pick and roll partnership with Karl Malone. Jazz were perennial threats in that era, and they're a couple of sick games away from Michael Jordan, or hangover games, we'll never know, away from perhaps winning it all. And I don't know if we'll see a more devastating sort of tandem in the NBA in the way that those 2 guys clicked. And that's, again, another player, John Stockton, who's talked about really highly by other players around the league, just the way, the intensity that he brought on the court. Jason Kidd, of course, has transitioned into coaching now, brings that intelligence and just a hard nose, a point guard.
Great at defense.
Great at defense. And again, Oscar Robinson's not somebody that I watched a whole lot, but the name precedes itself. He's got to be in this list. Otherwise, we'll be disrespectful to the game. But, Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? What's
So
in
not having Oscar Robertson on the list would be disrespectful, but putting Steve Nash at number 1 is respectful.
If you're Canadian, you got to do it, John. You just got to do it.
Well, do you have the other Canadian? We'll see. I've got another Canadian on my list at some point.
Okay.
All right. At 4, I've got Isaiah Thomas.
Uh-huh.
I think before Michael Jordan arrived on the scene, even in his early years, he was like the face of the league. Like he was unfortunately, he should be on that dream team, right? Of Michael Jordan. We all know it. Magic Johnson, Charles Barkley. But the feud that him and Michael Jordan had,
Yeah.
I think we forget how good Isaiah Thomas, and he was
Sure.
just a tough, maybe the best little guard of all time, if you can call him a little guard. Well, he's a little guard. So yeah, I've got Isaiah at 4, I've got Steve Nash at 5, and I've got AI at 6.
Allen Iverson.
Allen Iverson.
Yeah, okay.
Again, because of the impact that he had on the game, not
Right.
just performance-wise, but cultural. Like everyone before him, you want to be like Mike. After that, it was like you got to be like AI.
Yeah, right. The big shorts and the braids and
The headband.
yeah, and remember those Reebok Answer shoes that he
Yeah.
had with the 2 double bubbles down the bottom,
Yeah.
like those iconic.
The crossover.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The crossover, the step over Lou Tyrone.
I think if
Tyrone
you're
Lue.
known for something, you almost need to be on this list. Like if you have had a move that is like when you think of AI, you think of that crossover, right? Like you got to be on the list. When you think of Steve Nash, you think about his. When I think about Steve Nash, I think about him getting body checked into the side sanction by the Spurs in that game. You remember that? But obviously, he was like the original 50, 40, 90 guy. He was a general on the floor, and the pick and roll that he had with Stoudemire was pretty unstoppable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my 4, 5, 6. Who do you have at 7, 8, 9?
7, 8, 9. Well, I've got Isaiah Thomas in that spot at number 7 for the same reasons that we've been talking about. I think at 8 is where I'm going to bring in Russell Westbrook. I think like you said, a walking triple double, an intense player, multi-year all-star. I think he's justified in the top 10. Now, like you said, he's a polarizing pick, but he brings that intensity. Not sure if he's I think he's up there.
Okay.
I'm not sure what else to say. We've said a lot about Russell Westbrook so far.
Yeah.
And then
so stop at 7, 8. And then we'll do 9, 10.
Okay.
I'll do my 7, 8 now. This is a player that I just want to pause on for a sec.
Okay.
And I'd love to know if he's on your list. At 7, I've got Chris Paul.
Right. Yeah, of course.
But when I was coming up with this list, I thought, is he really a top 10 point guard? Or is he somewhat overrated? Like, what has he accomplished in his career to have him on a top 10 list? So I wanted to have him on the list mainly so we could discuss him. But what do you think?
Well, Chris Paul is coming up next in my list.
Okay. So you've got him at 9?
Yeah.
Well, let's
the point guard.
Yeah.
And I think technically from a pure point guard perspective, I think he is better in that position than Allen Iverson was. Like Allen Iverson's not on my list. Only not because like all the things that you've said are true, but when I think of Allen Iverson, I don't necessarily think of like orchestrating a team, delegate. I see him as a pure scorer, an offensive threat. I don't necessarily think of him as a defensive sort of stopper in that sort of way, but I do think buckets, and I don't know if that's enough translation to wider winning and culture setting.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I don't think Chris Paul would be missing practice and then getting angry
We're talking about
practice. He's not going to get angry at the media for talking about practice in the same way that I think Chris Paul, from what I've heard, every part of the game is detailed, calculated, prepared, and competitive in a way that of all that, like, and, JJ Redick talks about him as being the ultimate sicko. Like, if you want to win games, you want Chris Paul on your team. And unfortunately, that Lob City just happened to be in the same era as Golden State. Yeah. And they had their number of whatever it was. And maybe Doc Rivers wasn't the right coach for them in that setting. But I I've got him next in my list. I think he's well deserved in that top 10.
I do have him in my top 10, but I did want to talk about him. At 8, I think this is a point guard that gets overlooked in every top 10 list, and that's Gary Payton. I've got Gary
interesting.
at 8.
Yeah, okay.
He was the original claw, a defensive stopper, but also was able to put up points and dish out assists. So I think for his overall game, the intensity, man, that guy, like sometimes I just think when he talks, like, I'm sure all things are clicking, but you're just born different in the way that you're competitive. So Gary Payton, he's at my number 8 spot. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Again, so some of these names are names that we would have watched as we're children and they retired early on in our NBA watching.
Yeah.
And so it's funny that you bring him up. And when I hear the name, like, it's like, of course, of course he deserves to be in this list. But for me, I was thinking along the lines of like Damian Lillard, for example. That's a name that maybe it's a recency bias or whatever. And so for me, my last two names, 9, 10, are Chris Paul and Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard's wave at the end of it, at the end of that OKC series where he's saying goodbye to Paul George and those guys. I think that will live on in the wider memory of Portland lore for forever. But I guess you could critique Damian Lillard for a lot of the stuff that I've just critiqued Allen Iverson for.
Yeah.
And so I think like now that I remember those names, you're bringing them up, the recency bias is like, okay, of course there's Gary Payton. There's
I struggle with Dame.
Yeah, okay.
I think he's got a clutch gene.
Yeah.
He's known for the wave and the shot over Paul George.
Yeah.
Is he a winning basketball player?
I think he has been unfortunate to have a career in the same era as Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul
and Steph Curry.
Like for USA basketball, for example, that's 3 guys that you're chasing that are all in that top 10 list. And
how much do you blame Dame for it not working with Giannis?
Yeah, that's a tricky one because that trade, was he injured when they traded him?
No, he got injured.
But it was a mid-season trade, right? So they didn't have a full training camp to prepare. Was Giannis injured? I can't remember. Something obstructed.
But when they were on the court together, it just wasn't. It didn't work.
Yeah.
And I think it's that off ball. Maybe it's because he can't play off ball, and Giannis obviously is going to have the ball a lot, and so maybe he's somebody that needs the ball in his hands to be effective.
Yeah. And I guess if you're more of a traditional point guard, that's what you're accustomed to. From the age that you were like 3, or whatever you was starting to play organized basketball, the ball would go to you. Mm-hmm. Everybody else gets taller. Giannis is like this, freak player in a sense because he wants to have the ball and create a little bit more, but at that height is the typical height that if you're a traditional point guard, you would be sending them down into the post and playing off that. But yeah, no, I think you're right. Dame is an interesting player. I do think that, perhaps my recency bias has made me forget a couple of names, but I think he's well within that. Maybe the top 20, if we were to expand some of this list, all of the names that we've talked about would be in top 20.
Yeah.
And top 10 gets a little bit more dicey.
Yeah.
Shout out Steve Nash.
I got the big Oscar Robertson at 9.
Yeah, okay.
And then 10, this could be recency bias. I put SGA.
I was wondering if that was the other Canadian
I
that
think
you're
he's
talking about.
already in that top 10.
Sure.
He's got the MVP.
Yeah.
He's got finals MVP. He's got the championship.
Yeah.
I'm a big critique of sort of how he plays.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a fan of SGA.
Yeah.
But if I were to be honest, would I take him over some of the players that are in? Would I take him over Dame? I would take him over Dame.
Yeah. If you're starting a franchise, would you take SGA over Gary Payton?
Yeah. And the reason why SGA's on 10 is because we don't have the full resume of his career yet.
Yeah, okay.
So, like, you could almost say Luka eventually might be on this list, but
also a guy that's not a traditional point guard though, right? Like, and I think that's the modern NBA with the flexible positions and so forth is like what defines that now. Not many teams have a Chris Paul on their team.
No.
Like
James Harden was another one we didn't add into our lists.
And again, I would almost see him in the guard position. Like he's a little bit oversized and he's not necessarily playing a point guard position where he's distributing the ball.
Yeah,
So
he
much,
is now. He's just wasn't on Houston.
but so much as he orchestrates, his own isolation, drive and dish.
Yeah.
And that to me is different from a point guard position where you're not necessarily expecting them to be the top scorer. Chris Paul is not the top scorer on any team that he's been on, but he's setting the table for everybody to eat.
I just think the point guard position has been redefined. I don't think, like, who's the last tradition? Is Chris Paul the last traditional point guard? Like, do we have any traditional point guards right now based off your definition? And would they go in a top 10 draft anymore? Like, our team's interested in having a player that is main focus is getting other players involved?
That's a really interesting question. Because then if we took that list and you redraft the era with Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, not Steph Curry, but Chris Paul, John Stockton, and then maybe Oscar Robertson and Isaiah Thomas, there are 6 guys in this list that if you'd say, okay, you guys are perhaps what we would call the more traditional point guards, would you rather, if you were drafting all of the same year, looking at their prime, would you have them over Shea? Would you have them over Luka? Would you have them over prime Harden?
Yeah.
Could you make an argument that we could even see Kevin Durant? He brings the ball up a little bit like that. LeBron is somebody like that. Paul George perhaps is in the conversation. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Like these guys are long wings that are like, but when the ball is getting inbounded, quite often it's going to them. If not, it's finding those guys on the first pass and it's them that are playing from the top, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of those names I would include. I don't like Tatum, for instance, and Brown. Like, it's clear. I think to be in the point guard conversation, you have to have a handle, right? Like, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown don't have any sort of handle.
They would disagree with that, but
compared to us, obviously they do. But
Calabrini, I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me. But
it's really how the Warriors beat the Celtics in the finals in 2022.
Right.
It's forcing them left, right? Yeah. They not only could they not finish left, they struggled to dribble left as well. And okay. Kyrie Irving's another player.
Whoa, we didn't even talk about him. That's interesting.
I think
because tired this morning. Kyrie over Damian Lillard? I don't know.
Kyrie Irving had those 3 or 4 years where he was a difficult teammate. He's one of the reasons why the Nets team, which should have succeeded, didn't succeed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, COVID and,
Boston era is not good in his career as well.
Yeah. I almost put that one more on Tatum and Brown than I do Kyrie.
Well, whatever was going on with him, like he was doing the sideshow, flat earthing sort of stuff. That was the era when he was just saying problematic stuff. Yeah. And when he got traded to Dallas, everybody was like, oh, man. And thankfully, he cleaned it up. I'm excited for this year for him, for Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, that Cavs team, though, if that Cavs team doesn't get dismantled, or if Kyrie doesn't want to go have his own team, LeBron has at least one more championship. That's our
interesting thing on this list. Magic, Steph, Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, John Stockton, Oscar Robertson, Isaiah Thomas are not the kinds of players that all said, oh, I want to have my own team.
No.
James Harden is kind of in that category. Kyrie Irving is in that category. Russell Westbrook, could you say, is maybe in that category going to Washington? These are interesting things. This is why I think maybe like guys like Trae Young won't ever be in this conversation, the tried and failed sort of. And because I think at some level, that's what the point guard position is.
Yeah.
Is that you are facilitating the goodness out of everybody. And if you want to make it your show, then perhaps you're not the point guard. Perhaps you're playing that role without understanding fully what that is, says me.
How do we not have Mario Chalmers on our list?
Come on.
Next week, I reckon we need to do a top 10 shooting guards of all time, because that's a tricky list to find.
To evaluate.
So let's do that next week.
That's right. Yeah, you're 82 and how you pick out of this list.
Yeah. I think that's what we should do. We've done point guards this week. Next week, we'll do shooting guards and we'll do small forwards, power forwards, centers.
All right, let's do it. Sounds good.
All right, let's move into our top three storylines heading into this season? What do you have?
All right. I've got three things I've been thinking about that I'm going to be watching closely this year. And I think one of the things, or the top thing that I'm going to be looking at, is, have we reached the end of the social media pre-career? And the reason I say this is that there are three guys in particular that I can't remember, maybe it's like 5 years ago, were dominating in social media landscape, coming out of high school through, any college that they played and so forth. And that was Ja Morant, Zion Williamson, and Mac McClung, right? Those three guys just completely blew up. Now,
Yeah.
Mac, unfortunately, was undersized, and he's now gone in the dunking route in G League MVP and so forth, but I don't necessarily think that he has the size to have a really long, meaningful career in the NBA. And so the other two guys were expected to become the face of the franchise. Zion Williamson, everyone was excited for what he did at Duke, busting out of shoes, and him and RJ Barrett, who was the best player on that team, and he went number one pick. And a similar story with Ja Morant, came in and just electrified with his athletic ability. But I wonder if the hype has become so big at that young age that the follow through into having a competitive, meaningful NBA career becomes really difficult when your success comes too soon.
Yeah.
And in that respect, the fallout is big because Ja just got traded out of Memphis. And will he be able to coincide on the court with Dame Lillard, who is like a franchise guy in a really dysfunctional team, but is loved in that city? And, D Rose, when he was brought into Memphis, was saying, I'm not here to babysit anybody. And I hope that that's not the case there. And so I think that this is a really big year for Ja Morant.
Do they still have Drew Holiday as well?
Yeah. Same sort of thing. Yeah.
I think that's going to be, just to camp on that for a sec, I think that's going to be good for Ja. I think he's got some adults in the room. Not that they have to babysit him, but hopefully the culture there is a little bit more steady and he's not the franchise.
And this will be interesting because his talent and the way in which he was yipping at Klay Thompson and all that sort of stuff, everybody looking around, it was like he was prospectively the next guy. Yeah. Young people love him because of the way he plays, because of his, dunking ability and the energy. And he's a walking highlight in the way that kind of like blends Allen Iverson and Russell Westbrook in a way when he's on.
Yeah.
But, can he get out of like having to pretend to shoot machine guns and, do what he's doing on social media? And so that's going to be an interesting thing that I'm watching. And I think like the Boozer kids and the recent draft, I mean, they're utilizing their social media in a very different way now. But I don't feel like it's got the same hype train. Like even AJ DeBance has got a different hype train. Maybe that's the shifting of social media and YouTube now.
Yeah.
But I wonder if people are going to be rethinking this in the wider sort of landscape of when you want to peak in terms of utilizing those platforms. So,
what do you think about, I almost seem like there is a callback to maturity
100%.
in like this last draft class. I feel like the players just have another level of maturity, and it almost seems like in the late teens to early 20s, the maturity of players that were coming out, or maybe it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
There was just more immaturity back then.
Yeah.
We're only talking 5 years ago, but
yeah. And I wonder if that's just a rise of these platforms as well.
Yeah.
And in 5 years, the NBA contracts have exploded to the point where like you're leaving a lot of money on the table if you peak too soon, like huge amounts of money on the table. And so in that respect, I'm really curious to see how that goes.
Yeah. So that's one
of my storylines. Maybe I'm going from 3, 2 to 1. Like,
should I give you one of mine?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. All right. This one has already been talked about, but I'll just say it. Is the East the new West? I think for my whole basketball watching journey, the West has always been the more dominant conference.
Mm-hmm.
And will there be a shift in players wanting to go east? Because that's where a lot of the talent is now. Is the East more of a free agency destination? Think about LeBron James, Cavs teams. Like the East was just a joke. Like a huge reason why he was able to take a team with his second best player being Mo Williams to the NBA Finals was the East was just horrible. So is the East taking the torch of being the more dominant conference in the NBA?
It's a good question. I wonder if sometimes the East was maybe undersold a little bit, especially when Indiana was sort of like at their peak. Toronto had a couple of good years, and maybe that is because they're a little bit less competitive. I think it's a LeBron James strategy too to get to a conference that he thinks that he can compete in a finals.
Yeah.
But certainly having Giannis in Miami, having Boston at the tier that they are, Kawhi, if he ever makes it back to Toronto, if that's actually a thing. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That's a good question. We'll have to say. I think maybe one of the beautiful things about the league now is that the talent is so high.
Yep.
So high. And I wonder if that's kind of connected to the previous question too, is that there's so much money on the table that people are taking it so seriously from a young age.
Yeah.
In terms of diet, in terms of off the court readiness and stress management and all the rest of it. Just getting laser focused.
And I even think agents are probably managing some of your social media accounts. Like you are a business in yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
You're not just your own.
Yeah, you're not just a viral moment.
No, you're a brand.
You're a whole thing. Yeah, that's a good one. Cool. The second thing that I think is a good story for this year is how is the torch going to be passed on?
This has been a conversation for years now, hasn't it?
It has, but I think it's now more, maybe urgent's not the right word, but it's more in your face with the retirement of Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
Chris Paul went last year.
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook went in the offseason. I think Damian Lillard's not far away. And then same with LeBron, KD, Steph, Draymond, Embiid, DeRozan, Kawhi.
Paul George.
Paul George is another one. These are guys who are late in their 30s who have played really meaningful basketball. Maybe not Embiid, maybe he's a little bit younger. But everybody else in that list is getting to a place where we're starting to see like the career has gone from consistent excellence to like positioned excellence in a way in which you have to pick your spots a little bit now because the recovery in the NBA schedule and so forth. But who's going to take the mantle?
Yeah.
You know, Luke,
I would
maybe these are the big names now. And like Zion was it, Ja was in that conversation. Now it's kind of reduced to those big three, but I don't know if any of them have really cemented themselves.
Yeah.
And is the United States ready for a French guy to be the face of the league? Like it's a French guy, it's a Canadian, or it's a Slovenian. What are you looking at right now? Like this is really interesting.
I think there's one we're forgetting.
Yeah.
But before I say him, Adam Silver is still leveraging the old guys. Like Christmas Day, the pinnacle of regular season NBA is still based around LeBron James, Steph Curry.
And that's what I mean. This is the last 2 years, 3 years you can get away with this. So who's going to establish himself? What's that?
Ant.
Man, don't get me started.
You're not an Ant guy?
I love watching Ant play. I do but bringing LaMelo Ball onto that team, I'm afraid that makes the Warriors a bit more of a circus rather than a legitimate team.
The Timberwolves?
Yeah, the Timberwolves. Sorry. Yeah. I think that if you're not careful, Ant and his antics, you know, he's a great player. He's a charismatic personality, but they've been trying to get him to clean up his post game, you know, and you can't control who he is. That's who he is. He's a great guy. But in terms of selling to families and stuff like that, it's really tough to do it when you got a guy swearing, you know, and carrying on a little bit. And you've replaced Naz Reid, beloved Minnesota Timberwolves guy who had a huge reputation from all I've heard in Minnesota, who is an upstanding, well-loved player. You've replaced him for LaMelo Ball?
Let's go back in history for a sec, okay? Because there has always been a passing of the torch.
Yeah.
So you had Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. They passed the torch to Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan then passed the torch to Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant then probably passed the torch.
I don't know if they so much as passed the torch as
but
it's passed
the league,
for them. Yeah.
Kobe Bryant and maybe Tim Duncan is in that same. He probably didn't he didn't have like
The same gravitas.
aura.
Yeah, okay.
But Kobe Bryant, and then him and LeBron probably held it for a while. But I imagine there was a generation of people saying, we can't give the torch to this LeBron guy. Like, look what he's doing on the sidelines. He's taking photos with his, like, you remember when he was younger,
Yeah.
he was seen as very cocky. He was seen as not taking the game seriously.
I don't remember that at
You don't
all.
remember?
No.
No?
See, what I remember from LeBron's career is that he was the self-anointed king from way early on. And the knock was maybe around his arrogance, but he walked into that. And with LeBron, one of the most amazing things about his career, from my perspective, is either he's got a really, 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 really deep chest of non-disclosure agreements, or he's just had a really squeaky clean career.
Yeah.
What?
No, I'm not even saying controversy. I'm just saying it was an easy torch pass for us, because he is our generation.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure the generation before us maybe was more concerned about that torch pass because they just don't get that style of personality. And now we are now the older generation that the league is passing a torch to a generation that is below us in terms of Gen Z. And we just can't, like, LaMelo Ball and Ant are the most popular players for Gen Z in the world. And so is there a generational disconnect for us that we just can't understand?
Yeah, fair enough. I haven't thought of it like that. But as I'm looking at it, I don't necessarily see them as, I think it would need to translate to more on-court success.
Yep. I mean,
We'll
we're
see.
also coming like Steph Curry. He had the torch.
Yeah.
Steph Curry, LeBron James. Like, I do think I don't want to be one of those like Stephen A. Smith who is still stuck in the 90s or the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody better than any player that played in the 90s and the 80s.
Okay, so let me ask you this. In terms of the future of the league moving forward as a league, what are the characteristics that you think are really important for this ongoing success of the NBA if it's going to be taken seriously as a league?
I think Wemby encapsulates what the league needs in terms of the competitiveness.
Yeah.
He takes it super serious. He
maybe too serious.
Yeah. He's not American, which could, the league hasn't had a non-American face, but it's more international now than it ever has been.
Yeah.
What I love so I think Wemby is the right guy to take it.
Yeah, okay.
Because what I love about him is he is the reason why the All-Star game was a success last year.
Yeah, right.
Right? He decided that I am the alpha dog, or I'm going to be, and I'm going to set the tone for what I want this All-Star game to be moving forward.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think the playoffs ruined or tarnished his reputation a little bit.
Yeah.
But if I were to hand the torch over, it would be to Wemby.
Okay, so those characteristics that you've just mentioned, do you see those characteristics in Ant?
No, and I'm
there you go. That's my point.
I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I totally get that. But I know that the target audience for the NBA is the next generations.
Fair.
And although I might think that Wemby's the most successful torch bearer for this next generation of NBA basketball, does that sort of personality relate to the generations that are coming up?
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. No, it's a good way to put it. You got to hit us up in the comments and tell us what you think, because we're just trying to figure it out over here. And this is an interesting conversation. What do you think is the next ways that the face of the NBA should go and how it should go? So
my next one is Wemby the face of the league? So we've just talked about that. So I won't get into that. So can I just do my final one and then you do your last one? Was Jaylen Brown overrated, or is he overrated? That is a storyline heading into this year.
That's the big conversation. Bad stats, good team. Eye test versus analytics.
And you can kind of, I think you could relabel this as, was it JB or JT?
Yeah,
was it Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum that was most responsible for the success of the Boston Celtics?
Well, we'll find out. Maybe Mazzulla,
or Mazzulla. Yeah.
The
So
system.
that's what I'm really interested in this year. I think the Celtics should have played Philly in on Christmas Day, not Philly playing LA. Like
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right.
why are we saying like LeBron against LA is the game? It's got to be Jason
Yeah,
Tatum versus Jaylen
I
Brown.
agree. That was a miss shot. But
Yeah.
no, that's a good question. I think this is a very interesting year for Jaylen Brown in his career.
Yeah.
The narrative was last year he wanted his own team. He wanted to be the alpha dog. He had it, and he took his team to an overperforming season. It's best gap year in history, right?
Mm-hmm.
And could those two big dogs coexist? We were all looking forward to seeing it. And then the Celtics, either in a financial move or whatever, they get rid of him, but he doesn't go to his own team. He goes to a team that is now stacked,
Yep.
absolutely stacked. And it's like the new super team sort of
Yep.
thing. So what's that chemistry going to look like? And yeah,
He's mirroring the career of Kyrie Irving.
in some
Like
ways, yeah.
100%. He got drafted onto a team that had championship aspirations, or like he helped build the championship aspirations in that team. He won the championship and then began to self-sabotage with his online presence and his Twitch streaming. And
Did he self-sabotage it though?
who else did?
But like,
Media? Are you saying media?
well, yeah, that's what all the guys were making a big deal out of what he said. He's going on and saying stuff on Twitch, and they're misinterpreting it or
Yeah,
recreating the
Kyrie
narrative.
Irving, you could say the same for Kyrie Irving.
Yeah,
People couldn't handle a differential opinion in terms of vaccinations. And so he got labeled as the bad guy. He's
yeah,
allowed to have an opinion, but it was a minority opinion. So
yeah. Fair enough. I do think that Kyrie Irving's sort of sideshow was a little more antagonistic than what we saw out of Jaylen Brown. From what I've seen, Jaylen Brown is exceptionally professional, didn't take time off and didn't disappear from a team without telling them where he was going. Like he didn't get suspended from the team in the same way that Kyrie Irving did. Like that was a whole big show. Um,
I'm just saying there's some
okay, interesting.
there's some mirrors. All right,
Interesting. So you think the Jaylen Brown story is the one of the biggest talking points of the
yeah, and I
narrative?
mean Philly, I think you can,
Yeah.
Philly itself, but I didn't want to say Philly because we're talking about that so much.
Yeah, interesting. I think another big storyline is going to be the development of the rivalry between Oklahoma City and San Antonio Spurs, and specifically what happens with Chet Holmgren and Wemby. And can Chet come from his disappearing act in the Western Conference Finals, and can he cement himself as a key player, particularly against Victor Wembanyama? And I want to say in that conversation is a little bit wider: is who's going to emerge as the king of the West? And is it going to be Shea? Is it going to be Wemby? Is it going to how's Chet going to cement himself in that space? And
Don't forget about Steph Curry.
well, yeah, and that's part of it. Luka, Steph, there's a couple of big names, and we've talked about how intense and competitive the Western Conference has been. But who's the king of it, right? Who's the top dog in the Western Conference? I think in some ways we still expect that LeBron is the king of the Eastern Conference, just because of his gravitas, his name, and his career, and the makeup of the Philadelphia 76ers. I think they're the preeminent sort of storyline, if you will, not necessarily the best team, but the preeminent storyline. Whereas I think in the West, it's really unclear. It's sort of like the wild, wild West at the moment, and nobody has cemented themselves. Is this Victor's year, and will he emerge as the undisputed, or are they going to manage his minutes so that he's a little bit fresher for the playoffs this year? He's training with rugby players down in south of France this offseason. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles the physicality coming in.
I hope he comes back just like a Giannis type body, like just eating 10,000 calories a day, 500 grams of protein, and just comes back jacked.
That would be something on his frame. That's amazing.
He has to add some muscle. Yeah.
But I think the bigger part of this is yes, there's the who's going to come back in the West, but how does Chet come back in the Western Conference after that on a contract with the hope that they had for his career? He just reminds me so much of Adam Sandler, just baggy clothes, big glasses.
Yeah, it's awkward.
Awkward, but But I think this is a really big year because of what happened in that Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Particularly Game 7.
Is there a chance that one of those big, or I think Chet or J-Dub, is there a chance that one of them is on the trade block come?
Yeah.
I think depth, if you look at the success of the league recently, it's having maybe 1 to 2 Supermax guys and then a bunch of depth.
Yeah, right.
And the Thunder are moving into this territory where they're going to have to start paying a lot of their players. And is being top heavy a recipe for success in the NBA?
Yeah.
Or do you need to focus on having like a solid 8-man rotation?
Yeah. And I think that's where OKC is trying to get ahead of this, but they've gotten rid of some really quality players. And that'll be, for Atlanta Hawks game, where it was specifically around Lou Dort, but that'll be an interesting.
Yeah, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins.
Yeah. So you can over tinker with it, which is really interesting because each year when whoever wins the title, we kind of say, is this the new super team? Is this the new dynasty? And when OKC won it, and then they had that first amazing 20 games and they went undefeated to start the season last year, everybody was like, oh my goodness, this is their season to lose. And in some respects it was with J-Dub's health, but now you look at that team and you think, I don't know if I'd bet on them in the same way, or like I would, be as confident in them as I was this time last year, so to say. And it will remain to be seen if that's the same story for San Antonio 1 or 2 years in. What will they do with the team that is starting to sort of emerge and cement itself and want to get paid? Are they going to have to get aspiration type deals on the sidelines to be able to make it financially lucrative, So
am I wrong in saying that Kawhi Leonard stuff has been cleared up?
I don't think it has fully.
The Raptors and him are progressing as if he's going to play this year, and that Adam Silver couldn't find any legitimate evidence that Ballmer had done anything wrong.
Yeah, and then they came out really quickly afterwards and sort of made some statements that their investigation hasn't concluded yet, and there's still some stuff they're looking at.
ESPN just got it wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Or ESPN got it right, and the league wasn't ready to say, so they had to go into damage control. But
the Spurs and Thunder are clearly going to be in a league of their own this year in the Western Conference, in my opinion. And then it's sort of like who's 3-4, right? Like,
and who's healthiest? That'll be the big question.
Is it the Lakers or is it the Rockets?
Yeah.
What will Minnesota's the biggest unknown this year.
That's right.
Portland.
And how do the Warriors reinsert themselves into this conversation? But
I'm so optimistic with our Warriors.
You are every year.
Hey, we're tied for first. We're tied for first now.
Right now, yeah. This is so far so great. Yeah. Home court in the playoffs. Come on.
So next week we're going to talk about the top 10 shooting guards.
Sounds good.
And those are our top 3 storylines heading into 2026, 2027.
Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let us know what you think about our lists as we unveil rural Australian top 10s. Y'all can hate me, but Steve Nash is the best point guard of all time. Come on.
Man. Maybe at his peak. Do you think peak, if Ben Simmons stayed not crazy, he would have been on this list? At his absolute peak. Colin Cowherd, LeBron.
That's it. Good. A lot of these guys, we're talking about them retrospectively in their careers, right?
Yeah.
There's nobody going to retrospectively talk about Ben Simmons' career.
He's a what if. He's a what if.
Biggest what if.
All right. We'll see you next time.